Okay, so back once again with another lecture video. This is Professor Franklin Ayuson, and today it's operation management and it's Model D or the waiting line model. And the following are our outline. So we'll be discussing the characteristic of waiting line system, arrival characteristic, the waiting line characteristic, the service characteristic, and the queuing performance, as well as the queuing costs. More so, we're going to talk about the variety of the queuing models. Like we have Model A, or the single channel queuing model with Poisson arrival and exponential service time. Model B, the multiple channel queuing model. Model C, the constant service time model. And Model D, the limited population model. Okay. To start off, another is the different queuing approaches. To start off, okay, we have the following learning objective. Upon completion of this module, we should be able to describe the characteristic of arrival, waiting lines, service, system. Number two, apply the single channel queuing model equation. And number three, conduct a cost analysis for our waiting line. Okay. Another is also to apply the multiple channel queuing model formulas, apply the constant service time model equation, perform a limited population model analysis. Okay. So to start off, what is a waiting line? Okay. Uh, More often, we call it the queuing tune. Waiting lines are very much common in different situations. Okay, and understanding the queuing theory or the waiting line models is useful in both manufacturing and service area. So waiting line, sa madaling salita, pila. So gaano ba kaimportante yung pag-intindi o yung pagkakaintindi natin, okay, o yung ating pagkakaintindi at pag-apply sa operation management nung tinatawag na waiting line or pila. Yan. Okay, now, okay, to further understand, we look at several common queuing situation. Supermarket, of course. Okay, so you have your arrival in the queue. Okay, these are the grocery shoppers. Okay, service process would be checkout clerks at cash at the register. No? Pero because of our pandemic experience, okay, wherein the supermarket may have some limited number of customer served. Okay, so bukod dun sa arrival at the grocery shoppers at the supermarket and check out at the cash register, you see, you have to fall in line also, okay, to be able to enter the supermarket. And for them to be able to determine, okay, as at a certain level of service capacity, yung kaya nilang i-offer. Of course, no, this is with the determination of the IATF, no, as we experience now. No? Another would be, let's say, highway toll booth. Yan, sa mga NLEX, SLEX. Yan. So, of course, arrival in the queue are in the form of automobiles. Okay? And of course, the service process would be collection of tolls. Okay? For doctor's office, of course, arrival in queue are patients, and the service process are doctors and nurses. Okay? Even computer system, okay? Also waiting for queue are the programs to be run, and of course, the computer process jobs, a telephone company, the caller, okay? The switching of equipment for forward calls. Okay? These are your service process. So whenever we call, for example, a telecommunication number, okay, for a certain service, normally pinaghintay tayo, meron tayong queuing. No? So tayo yung caller, tayo yung nag-arrive sa queue. So yung switching nung pagpo-forward ng call natin sa iba't ibang call center agent to answer our concern. Yan. For bank, of course, no, the queue arrival is in the form of customer. And of course, these are transactions handled by the tellers. Okay, for machines, maintenance, okay, arrival of the queue are, of course, broken machines. Okay, the service process are repair people fixing the machines. For harbor, of course, ships and barges, okay, dock workers, loads and unloads materials and product to be transported. So these are the common queuing situation that we actually experience. Pero to put it in our perspective, probably during enrollment, arrival at the queue are students waiting to be enrolled. And the service process are clearance and of course the different process and steps in enrollment. Okay? Following, okay, are this time characteristic of a waiting line system. Okay, so there are, I think, 3. Yes. Okay. Number 1, the arrival. These are inputs to the system. When you say arrival, the arrival or the arrival in the queue, okay, can be determined through the population size, the behavior, and of course, okay, once more, we're using statistical distribution. Okay. For example, number of cars, okay, arriving at a particular car wash, for example, okay, that would be a population size in a particular location. Pero yung behavior, it depends whether or not we are or the owners of the vehicle would behave to, let's say, have their car wash. For example, kung umulan, paano? Okay, kung umaraw, paano? Kung umulan, umaraw, paano? Yan. Okay, another characteristic of the waiting line are the queuing discipline or the waiting line itself. Okay? So, that discipline or the waiting line itself can be in terms of the limited or unlimited in length or discipline of people or items in it. So, meaning to say, we're talking about the limited and limited, let's say, personnel, discipline of people or personnel, okay, or say items or process, okay, wherein our arrival or our population, okay, or our arrival in the queue will have to go into the process. Okay, so again, the queuing discipline, kung paano natin sila papilahin, okay, ano yung waiting line itself, okay, ilan yung tao na mag-handle doon, ilan yung discipline of people that would be available in the queuing line, okay? And number 3, the service facility itself. Yan. So the design of the service facility. Another would be the statistical distribution of service time. Yan. Okay, and okay, moving forward, we now have the arrival characteristic. Now notice, now we're talking about the first characteristic of the waiting line, the arrival or inputs. Okay, meaning the population size, the behavior, the statistical distribution. Okay, so the arrival characteristic again can be based on the size of the population wherein it can be unlimited or infinite or it could be limited or finite. No? Meaning to say, when you say limited or finite, we have, let's say, an exact number. Yan. We have a probable number of population or size of population that we are expecting, okay, to fall in line or to enter our queue, yan, waiting line queue or the arrival queue. No? Pag sinabing unlimited, hindi natin alam kung gaano kadami yung posible na pumasok. Okay? Probably we don't have any idea. No? In that sense, no, unlimited siya. For example, if you're enrolling, let's say, third year and fourth year student, most likely you have an idea or a limited number of students that you would enroll at that particular day because you have a predetermined number or estimate. However, for first year, yan, it can be unlimited because yung expectation natin where these people or these students will come in, may be in different sources. So we don't have any number yet. Although, no, pwede mo sabihin na nagpe-prepare lang tayo according to our capacity. But then again, no, that is a different story. No? Posibleng katulad ng eskwelahan, may capacity, pero for example, for a fast food yan, or for a service company, no, it can be unlimited. No? So as long as we can serve them. Yan. Another characteristic of arrival is the pattern of arrival. Okay, when you say a pattern, that would be schedule or randomness. Yan. So meaning to say, are they going to arrive at a certain time? Okay. What would be the probability of number of arrivals per time period? Yan. Okay. Often, we call it the Poisson distribution. And so later on, we'll talk more about that. No? And finally, we're going to talk about, in terms of characteristic of arrival, would be the behavior of the arrival. Yan. So behavior. No? When you say behavior, okay, wait in queues and do not switch line, or okay, the bulking or reneging of our arrivals. No? So ibig sabihin, no, posibleng nainip sila, posibleng nagrereklamo sila, posibleng uneasy sila, etc. No? Okay, and then in other cases, posibleng they are willing to wait at a certain queue, or they tend to switch from one line to another. Okay, that would be in terms of behavior. To illustrate what we have been talking about, okay, here we have the following. No? The arrival to the system, okay, in the system and exit to the system. Okay, initially, no, yun yung ating tinitignan. Okay, so in this case, arrival, okay, that would include population of, let's say, dirty cars. Of course, no, population of cars, they are bound to absorb some dirt. No? Dudumi talaga, nasa kalsada. Okay, the arrival from the general population, so how much from this general population of 30 cars would arrive, okay, that would be part of your arrival to the system. Yan. Okay? So, this is what you call the arrival characteristic. And yung pinag-uusapan natin na size of population, behavior, and statistical distribution. Yan. Now, whenever we arrive at the, or the population, for example, no, arrive, okay, they will enter what you call the queue. Yan. So this is our waiting line. So now, upon entering the queue, we are now in the system. Okay? So that also includes not only arrival from the queue, entering the queue or the system, but also enter and exit, okay, in our service facility. In this case, yung car wash. Yan. Okay, and of course, finally, okay, before that, no, we have to consider the waiting line characteristic. Okay, wherein there can be, let's say, limited or unlimited arrivals. Yan. Okay, if we have certainty on the number of population that we are expecting, or we are actually uncertain, we're just waiting for a queue. Yan. And finally, okay, in terms of waiting line characteristic, yung queue discipline, which we'll try to appreciate more later, no? Okay, what else? Okay, we also have finally, the exit to the system. Yan, exit to the system. As you can see, nag-exit na siya dun sa facilities. Okay? Okay, these are service. We talk about here from the service facility to the exit to the system. Okay, it covers the service characteristic. Yan. So you have the service design, the statistical distribution of services. Yan. So again, no? Before we move forward, okay, we are considering or discussing here the parts of the waiting line. Again, we look at the population, the arrival from the general population entering our queue. So papasok na siya sa queue, okay? And okay, entering out and exiting our service facility, okay? And of course, exiting the system. Yan. So in general, you have the arrival to the system, in the system, and exit the system. Wherein we'll talk about different arrival characteristic, we'll talk about the waiting line characteristic, and of course, the service characteristic. Okay? Now, okay, talking about Poisson distribution. Ayan. Saan ba siya papasok? Kanina. Ayan. Dito sa patterns of arrival. Ayan. Okay, dito sa arrival characteristic. So, ito lang yun siya. So, from the arrival to the system, yan, we'll talk about, okay, this time, the statistical distribution of arrival, okay, before it enters our queue. So, we might want, we need to understand, or you might need to understand, okay, some probability in which, okay, part of this population will enter, okay, or arrive in our queuing line. Well, that's the problem. No, that's the problem. Because unless otherwise we have some understanding of this, okay, there will be chaos in both manufacturing and service. Yan. Which means to say, yung, yung demand, okay, which is evident, of course, and we use it in our inventory and in manufacturing, is more so prevalent in services. Yan. So what I mean to say is, if you do not have any idea or rate of computation in which we can understand the probability that, for example, a certain day in a week, okay, will have more arrival from the general population entering our system, our queue lines, and our facilities, okay, we might end up with a chaos. Okay? For example, ang dami-daming pumasok sa supermarket. Okay? Hindi natin ma-facilitate ng maayos, pumapangit yung serbisyo. Okay? We might be guessing the number of employees that we need to delegate during that time. Okay? It's not always the case na nandun tayo sa intuition natin, sa gut feeling natin, okay? In trying to determine the demand, no? So you might as well have certain ideas, no? So dito na ngayon papasok tong Poisson distribution, no? In which, no, okay, after this, no, okay, after defining PX or the probability of arrival, okay, that is what we're trying to determine. Okay, the probability of arrival from the general population, okay, is equal to E, or the Euler's number of 2.72, okay, which is based on natural algorithm. So later on, sabihin ko na I have a short video to explain this Poisson distribution. Okay, and you have the lambda, okay, which is the average arrival rate. Okay, talking about the average arrival rate, meaning to say if you have certain averages, no, also based on our discussion of inventory management, okay, probably you have datas, no, or historical data, okay, of number of arrival, okay, both most recent and past data, okay, and of course the X is the number of arrival per unit, okay. So again, no, you might want to understand this Poisson distribution, okay, or the probability of arrival of X again in the system or the queuing lines. Okay, so in this case, no, I will be posing a probably to play my discussion of Poisson distribution. Yeah. Okay, so at this point, probably I have posed and discussed or actually played my video presentation regarding Poisson distribution, okay, and of course some understanding of the lambda and the Euler's number or of 2.72, okay, with that concept of x. And in my example, probably no y yata yung ginamit na symbol, okay? And of course, no, understanding, okay, the probability of arrival. Now we can understand, okay, that our probability in consideration of distribution for lambda 2 and for distribution for lambda 4 at certain level of probability from 0.05 to 25% probability of X arriving, okay, we have certain number yan, of X to expect, okay, at a certain Poisson distribution probability. Sa madaling salita, no, nakukompute pala, no, at certain probability and at certain distribution of lambda, okay, or lambda rate, no, okay, we can actually um, compute for the probability, no. So yung concept, yung computation aspect pinaliwanag na dun sa lecture video, no, pero in this case we are able to plot at certain level of probability, okay, that for example at 15% probability, okay, we are expecting at least 2 to 5, yan, uh, arrival at our queue. Yan. Ibig sabihin, yan, so arrival from the general population. Okay, the probability of arrival, yung dami ng papasok doon sa sistema natin. Okay? Now, moving forward. Okay, this time, no, let's talk about the waiting line characteristic. Okay, so again, no, para lang ma-refresh tayo dun sa pinag-uusapan natin, no? Okay, kanina dito tayo sa arrival characteristic, pinag-usapan natin 'yan. Okay. Tapos ayan, arrival characteristic, no? Ngayon naman doon na tayo doon sa waiting line characteristic. So yung waiting line characteristic natin, ibig sabihin, okay, at a certain number of arrival has entered the system and become part of our queue. Okay? So in this case, sa example natin, yung queue natin, meron lang tayong tatlo. So papasok pa lang siya dun sa queue. Okay? O this time, pag-usapan natin yung waiting line characteristic. So the waiting line characteristic obviously can be limited or unlimited in terms of queue length. So yung limited, example natin, ayan, limited lang siya, tatlo lang. But of course, it can be unlimited. Yung haba ng pila na kaya mo, no? Yung pila na kaya mo i-accommodate, yung pila na kayang i-tolerate ng sistema, no? Kasi syempre, kung sasakyan yan, may length yan. Pero kung tao yan, with and in consideration of what we have right now, social distancing, so probably 6 feet away from each other, most likely, okay? And the limitation of our facility. Ayan, bigla ko tuloy naisip yung nung isang araw nung kumuha ako ng PhilSys. Yan, PhilSys ka ba? Yung Philippine ID System. Yan. So, kumuha ako ng national ID. It just so happened that the probability that I was in that mall in that day was not certain, and in my case, no, probably yung konsepto na pumila ako doon, kaya lang ako pumila, o kaya lang kami pumila dahil walang nakapila, no? But no, during that time, in a span of minutes, no, biglang humaba yung pila. Yan. bigla nagkaroon ng pagdami yung pila. Okay. So, as I was talking, yan, sabi natin kanina, it can be limited or unlimited. No? So, limitado sa tatlo, unlimited up to the extent that people can fall in line. Okay? So, minsan talagang sobrang haba ng pila. Okay? Now, in terms of queue discipline, we have, of course, 5 points the most common. First in, first out. First in line, first serve. No? So walang ano rito, walang singit. Kung sino yung nauna, siya yung unang isi-serve at siya yung unang aalis. Other priority rules may be used in special circumstances. Like for example, umila ka sa mercury drugs, no? May senior citizen line. Okay, kahit si Hodang ang haba na nung pinila mo at nandun ka na sa huli ng queue, okay? Kung merong senior citizen na pumasok, that is the special circumstances. Paunahin din natin yun, no? That is of course, with the concept of our culture na bigyang halaga yung senior citizen at mauuna sila lagi, no? So yan yung priority lane na na tinatawag, no? In the queue discipline, okay, that is the priority rules, treated as special circumstances. Okay, anyway, another would be this time the service characteristic. So babalikan ulit natin. Asan ba si service characteristic? Yan. So andito na ngayon siya. Service characteristic. From our service facility. Okay? So kung merong characteristic si arrival, si waiting line, pinag-usapan natin yung tatlong karakteristik niya. Okay? The limited and unlimited, the first in and first out, and the priority, other priority in special circumstances. Meron din natawag na service characteristic. Okay, diyan naman ngayon papasok si queuing system design. Okay, so it can be in the concept of, again, so please take note, single channel system or multiple channel system. Yan. So yung queuing system design can be single channel system and multiple channel system, or the single phase system or the multiple phase system. So tatalo na natin para makita natin yung queuing system design. Ayan. Ayan. So in this case, the queuing system design from arrival to queue to service facility and departure from service. Yan. So ang tawag natin dito, single channel, single phase. Kasi meron lang tayong queue at meron lang tayo isang service facility. Yan. Papagpalit nga ng highlight. Okay. Okay. On the other hand, okay, you have, let's say, in the case of McDonald's, okay, drive-through window. And so, pag magda-drive-through tayo, okay, they have dual window drive-through method. So, in which, merong queue, okay, merong service facility 1 or phase 1 of service facility. Anong gagawin doon? Actually, tatlo nga yan sa Pilipinas. Okay, may voice prompter doon sa unahan. Yung nagtitake na ng order, no? So si cashier doon, multitasking yun. Habang nagsusukli ka doon sa harap mo, nagtitake ka ng order. So kaya niya, pinapatay-patay niya yung mic niya kung sino yung kausap niya, no? So it really takes practice, no? So service facility 1. Okay? Tapos pupunta na ngayon doon sa service facility 2. Yan. Okay? So dito ngayon yung magbabayad ka na sa cashier. Okay? Tapos yung service facility 3, pipick up mo na yung order mo. Yan. Okay? So actually, no, posibleng naglagay na sila rito. Yan. Yan yung 1. Yan yung C or 0. Let's say 0. service facility. Yan yung voice speaker and receiver nung cashier. So dito na ngayon magbabayad. Tapos dito na ngayon magre-receive ng order, no? Yan. So ang tawag diyan, single channel pero multiple system. So kanina single channel and single pay system. Okay? Sige, balik tayo konti. Okay? Or in terms of service time distribution, okay, you have the constant service time or the random service time. Okay, usually negative exponential distribution. Ay, hindi ko tatalunan muna yan. Punta muna tayo dun sa ibang queuing system design. Kasi sinabi lang natin dito kanina, single channel and multiple channel. Ito pala, babalikan ko, single phase and multiple phase. Ito pala muna tayo bago yung service time distribution. So single phase tayo. Ayan. Ayan. Multiple channel, single phase. Ibig sabihin, from arrival to the queue, we have several service facility. Meron kang channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. And these are most common for banks or post office. Ayan, yung common na pila na na ginagawa natin, no? Ayan, ganyan kami pinapila doon sa PLCs, no? So Philippine ID system. So, pila ka. Sino yung unang tumayo? Salpak ng salpak. Pero may service facility kasi sila doon. May tao na hindi lang gano'n. Because of course, yung konsepto ng pandemic, nung pagtayo ng tao, nisprayan ng alcohol, dinidisinfect, ayan, pati yung lahat ng hinawakan mo, kasi may biometrics pa yun sa mata, hindi lang sa kamay. So, yan. So, wina-wipe nila yon. Anyway, moving forward. So this time you have the multiple channel and multiple phase system. So yung ating queuing, again, from arrival to queue, but this time, the queue can enter facility 1, channel 1, and can enter phase 2, in channel 1, or pwede naman siya sa channel 2, phase 2. Yan. Or pwede siyang pumasok sa phase 1 sa channel 2, mag-exit sa channel 2, phase 2, or dun sa phase 2, channel 1, whichever is vacant. Then enter, of course, the departure. Yan. So multiple channel, multiple phase. Yan. So this time, no, college registration yung example. College registration, no? Yan. So pagtapos mo rin sa pila na to, pwede ka nang pumunta dun sa ibang, sa next phase. Sa next phase, depende dun sa available na channel. Okay. Then you have the negative exponential distribution. So dito na ngayon yan. Saan ba to? Yan. Service time distribution. Yan. Constant service time. Random service time. Now, as you can see, no, in this negative exponential distribution, the probability that service is greater than T. Yan. And E, so time is greater than 1. So we'll have to use the average service rate times the Euler's number. Yan. So multiplying it via the Euler's number, we can determine, for example, 3 customer per hour with 20 minutes per customer. That would be your average service rate and average service time. Okay? So ito ginagamit natin. Importante itong constant number na to. To determine the average service time rate and average service time. Yan. So in this case, the average service rate pertains to the blue line. So ibig sabihin, our time in hours, and the average service rate, 1 customer per hour at 3. Yan. So 3, 20 minutes per customer. Anyway, moving forward, measuring the queue performance. So this time, the average time of each customer, or are we referring to the object spend in the queue. Gaano katagal pumila? The average length of the queue. Gaano kahaba yung pila on the average? The average time each customer spent in the system. Okay, so pagkatapos mo sa queue, punta ka na sa sistema, gaano ka katagal dun sa sistema? Or pagdating ba dun sa sistema, meron ulit queue? Yan. Okay, the average number of customer in the system. Okay, customer in the system. Ilan yung kaya sa loob ng sistema? Yan. The probability that service facility will be idle, titigil yung facility, okay, magbe-break, magme-maintenance, and the utilization factor of the system. Okay, and finally, the probability of specific number of customer in the system, sa loob ng sistema. Yan. So again, no, what we're measuring is the queue performance, yung pila. Yan. So depende sa mga average. Time, length, okay? Customer in the system, average time customer in the system, number of customer in the system, probability that the system will be idle, okay? How much is the utilization factor of the system? Gaano ko siya na-utilize? Para-parehas ba sila o merong isang part ng sistema na hindi ganong nagagamit? Yan. And finally, the probability of a specific customer in the system. Okay, again, we're talking about specific number of customer in the system. Yan. So with this, we can understand, okay, our queuing cost. So the cost, okay, is the minimum or the minimum total cost versus the service level, which is high, optimal, and low. So you have your total expected cost, okay, at minimum cost and the optimal level, optimal, okay, this would be the standard, okay? And of course, the cost of waiting time decreases as we try to lower our costs. Yan. Okay, doon naman sa the cost of providing the service, this time, yan. So as you can see, no, we can actually arrive at our total expected cost for the queue, cost of providing the service, okay, from the queue cost, and cost of waiting time from the queue cost. No? May cost siya lahat. No? And again, it will define not only the cost, but the service level. Yan. So, yan. Moving forward, we have the different queuing model. Okay, the 4Q queuing model will assume the following. Number 1, the Poisson distribution arrival. Number 2, the FIFO discipline. Number 3, a single service space. Yan. So single service space lang muna. Huwag muna nating gamitin yung iba, no? Okay, balik natin ano yung single service space. Ayan. Single base. Single service space, no? Okay, and of course it will complicate itself with a different queuing system design. Yan. So doon lang muna tayo. Okay, sa mga model, no? So model A, okay, what we have, okay, pag lang ako ng mas lighter na sheet. There you go. Okay, is MM1 or the single channel system. Okay, one example is the information counter at the department store. And single channel yan. Number of channels, single. Number of pays, isa lang din. Arrival rate, we will compute for the Poisson, the probability, Poisson distribution. The service time pattern is exponential. Population size is unlimited, of course. The queuing discipline is first in and first out. Okay, for another model, the model P, we'll have the multiple channel or the MMS. Okay, this time you have the airline ticketing counter working in a multiple channel system. A number of pays, sige, single lang muna tayo. Okay, single pays lang. Isa lang. Okay, arrival rate, Poisson. Okay, service time pattern, exponential. Again, Population size is unlimited. First in, first out for FIFO discipline. For Model C, okay, this time, yung example natin, automated car wash, constant yung service. Since automated siya, alam mo kung gaano lang katagal yung service facility. Okay, number of channel, again, single. Number of pay, single. Poisson arrival, but again, this time, the service time is constant. So yung pagkakaiba niya kanina, exponential yung service time. Ibig sabihin, case to case, depende. Pwedeng humaba. Okay, pero ito constant. Okay? Terms of size of population, unlimited. Queuing, still FIFO. Okay? And last model, Model D, you have the limited population, the finite population. Okay? Example, shops with a dozen of machine that breaks. O yan, marami na sirang makina. So number of channel single, number of pay single. Poisson again is our arrival rate. We will compute for that probability. Service time, again, this would be exponential. Population time, population size is limited. And again, we're working with a FIFO discipline. Okay? So at this point, we'd like to pause and declare this part as part 1 of the waiting line, juries, in operation management. Stay tuned for some more discussion and we will be moving forward, okay, to another part, to part 2. Thank you for listening. God bless everyone. Maraming salamat.